They knew. The most expensive Supertall in the Middle East was failing before the first key turned. And they sold $2.9 billion in luxury real estate anyway, somewhere between the first draft and the final version of the legal prospectus used to sell ultra-luxury penthouses in Dubai Marina. A single word changed. The early language stated the tower's specialized structural foundation will prevent seawater and sand infiltration. The final registered version? It stated the foundation was designed to prevent it. Will became designed to. 3 words swapped in for one, according to a massive data-heavy fraud lawsuit recently filed in the Dubai International Financial Center, DIFC courts. That tiny edit was not a typo. The homeowners board alleges it was the exact moment the developers realized the tower's foundational integrity was compromised by shifting reclaimed land and intense thermal expansion, and quietly changed the language to legally shield themselves while $2.9 billion in apartments went out the door. This is the construction files, and this is document number 9. Today, we are not asking whether this iconic 90-story glass and concrete monolith is sinking, swaying, or suffering from catastrophic glass fatigue. We already know it is. Today, we are asking a colder, more dangerous question, the one the ultra-wealthy residents are now asking under oath. Who knew? When did they know it? And what did they do with that knowledge while the global elite bought into a structural time bomb? The new legal filing targets the ultra-luxury developer, the engineering consortium, and the marine contractors. The demand? Over $165 million in direct damages plus massive punitive penalties. This isn't a standard maintenance dispute. It is an explicit allegation of deliberate, far-reaching fraud. The board claims the developers knew about 1,893 distinct structural defects, including foundational microcracks exposed to corrosive Arabian Gulf brine, and hid them from buyers and municipal inspectors alike to avoid delays. The paper trail is terrifying, and the clock is ticking. To understand how a multi-billion-dollar disaster gets masked as a masterclass in modern architecture, you have to look at the engineering decisions made during the early 2010s boom. The vision for this downtown Dubai tower was radical. A hyper-slender, wing 400-foot glass monolith boasting a breathtaking 15-to-1 height-to-width ratio. It was half a pencil standing on its end in a desert sandbox. But Dubai's geology presents 2 brutal enemies: a punishing marine environment and extreme ambient heat that routinely tops 45 degrees Celsius. In a supertall of this scale, the concrete and glass exterior isn't just a facade. It is the load-bearing skeleton. The exposed concrete carries the building's immense dead weight, while the pressurized double-glazed glass units are engineered to withstand both hurricane-force winds and relentless thermal expansion. When temperatures skyrocket, materials expand. When night falls, they contract. This continuous thermal cycling creates massive shear stress where the glass meets the concrete frame. According to the internal project logs unearthed in the lawsuit, engineers raised urgent red flags about glass fatigue and structural microcracking as early as 2013. If moisture from the humid, salty coastal air penetrates those cracks, it hits the internal steel reinforcement. Wet steel corrodes. Corroding steel expands, fracturing the concrete from the inside out. The lawsuit alleges that rather than pausing to apply an expensive, heavy-duty elastomeric waterproofing membrane to seal the structure, the developers pushed ahead to meet rigid handover deadlines. The complaint even includes a staggering detail. When consultants demanded a premium marine-grade sealant for the lower structural piles exposed to the high water table, the developer allegedly ordered a cheaper, commercial-grade silicone chemical normally used on luxury yachts, prioritizing a fast visual finish over long-term structural integrity. Construction wrapped, the gleaming tower opened its doors, and the marketing machine went into overdrive. While engineers were allegedly tracking the rapid deterioration of the foundation piles below, out front, the sales team was executing a flawless campaign, raking in $2.99 billion from hedge fund tycoons, oil magnates, and international celebrities, all signing contracts based on a sanitized paper trail. What happens when the glitz wears off and a 90-story Supertall begins to reject its own engineering? By the late 2010s, the pristine tower in Dubai Marina began to talk. And it wasn't saying anything good, because the tower was built on reclaimed coastal land. The interaction between shifting sand foundations and the building's extreme 15-to-1 slender ratio created an engineering nightmare. In high winds, residents on the upper floors reported terrifying creaking and banging noises as the structural concrete flexed against the desert gales. It wasn't a luxury experience. It felt like being inside the hull of a ship during a storm. Worse, the intense heat expansion began causing severe glass fatigue. The pressurized double-glazed windows, meant to insulate the interior from the 45 degrees Celsius heat, started cracking under the immense shear stress. When those seals failed, the ambient humidity of the Arabian Gulf hit the building's internal climate control systems. Condensation flooded the utility shafts. Then came the plumbing failures. Due to the immense pressure required to pump water a quarter mile straight into the sky, minor structural shifts caused high-pressure pipe couplings to snap. Luxury duplexes were suddenly inundated with cascading water, ruining millions of dollars in custom marble and high-end finishes. But the most chilling failure was mechanical. In a tower where the elevator is your only lifeline to a penthouse 1,300 feet in the air, the building's sway caused the elevator cables to misalign, triggering automatic safety shutdowns. High-profile residents found themselves repeatedly trapped in dark shafts for hours. By 2021, the homeowners board had seen enough. They launched their first massive multi-million-dollar lawsuit, citing over 1,500 distinct construction and design defects, calling the tower one of the worst examples of developer malfeasance in the history of Middle Eastern real estate. The developers publicly shot back, claiming the structure had performed remarkably well and remained a premier global residence. But that initial lawsuit only scratched the surface. It was a breach of contract case, essentially saying, "You built it wrong, now fix it." The 2025 filing completely changes the legal battlefield. It moves the target from simple construction defects to intentional fraud. A defect case is about engineering. A fraud case is about knowledge. The residents are no longer just fighting over cracked concrete and broken glass. They are tracking the paper trail to prove the developers knew the tower was failing before they sold it. Behind the massive figures and complex legal jargon are the real casualties of this multi-billion-dollar engineering disaster. The buyers who thought they were purchasing a piece of the sky, only to end up holding the bill for a sinking asset. Take the case of an ultra-high net worth expat couple who liquidated their European tech holdings to purchase a $45 million bespoke penthouse overlooking the Palm Jumeirah. They expected pristine, uninterrupted luxury. Instead, they spent their first summer watching the pressurized glass panels in their living room fracture under the intense 45 degrees Celsius heat, making a sound like a gunshot echoing through the apartment. When the high-pressure water mains failed 3 floors above them, their custom Italian marble floors were ruined by a cascade of brackish water. Stories like this are quietly multiplying across the tower's 90 floors, driving down occupancy and triggering a hidden financial crisis. This channel runs on data, so let's look at the hard numbers. Because this skyscraper has provided the cleanest data set on luxury real estate destruction in the Middle East, the building's crowning jewel, a sprawling duplex penthouse, was initially listed for a staggering $169 million. As the engineering issues leaked into the market, the price was slashed to $130 million. It eventually traded for just $70 million. That is an absolute loss of nearly $100 million on a single asset. Unit after unit is reselling far below its original sponsor price, completely defying Dubai's broader luxury real estate boom, and the financial contagion is spreading to the banking sector. Mortgage underwriters and risk committees look at active litigation. A tower embroiled in a two-front legal war, alleging structural fraud is a toxic asset for a bank. Financing has completely dried up. When lenders back away, the buyer pool shrinks exclusively to cash purchasers, and cash purchasers demand massive, predatory discounts. Worse still is the insurance loop. A Supertall, with a documented history of glass fatigue, foundation microcracks, and internal flooding, is an underwriter's nightmare. The building's master insurance premiums have skyrocketed, and those costs are being pushed directly onto the owners through inflated service charges. Usually, developers expect wealthy buyers to move on or settle quietly to protect their privacy. But this time, they miscalculated. The homeowners board at this tower is backed by some of the deepest pockets in the world. They have effectively unlimited litigation budgets and have hired the top construction litigators in the DIFC. They are legally bound by a fiduciary duty to pursue accountability, and they aren't backing down. If this elite group cannot force a developer to answer for a failing building, no property buyer in the world can. So, where does this leave us? The defendants strongly deny any wrongdoing. The developers continue to maintain that the tower is an architectural triumph, a landmark of modern engineering that has performed exceptionally well under harsh desert conditions. The DIFC courts will ultimately decide who is right, a process that will take years of bitter legal warfare, but step back from the complex legal machinery and look at the undeniable data. The tallest residential monolith of its generation, $2.9 billion in sales. A hidden structural survey tracking 1,893 distinct defects. 2 massive active lawsuits totaling over $400 million in damages. A premier penthouse that shed nearly $100 million in value before it could find a buyer. And one quiet, late-night edit in a legal sales document, transforming will prevent to design to prevent. That a court is now being asked to read as a confession. The buildings in these files always tell the truth eventually. Concrete cannot lie. Corrosive saltwater always finds the micro crack. Extreme desert heat always exposes glass fatigue. And the paper trail always keeps a record of exactly when the promises changed. The only question this skyscraper leaves us with is the one a judge may soon answer. Not whether the tower failed its owners, but whether it was always going to. And whether someone knew. Here is what I want to know from you. If you were looking at the evidence, does one changed word in a prospectus prove systemic fraud, or is that just lawyers doing what lawyers do? And the bigger question, if global billionaires with unlimited legal budgets can't protect themselves from a structural disaster, what chance does a regular property buyer have? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and the sharpest take gets pinned. This has been the Construction Files, document number 9. The file stays open.